Ambassador Zexthara adjusted the translucent membrane, covering her optical sensors as she observed the human delegation entering the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council. The bipedal creatures moved with what she could only describe as controlled aggression, their movements sharp and purposeful. Unlike most species who glided, floated, or undulated into the chamber, humans walked with heavy footsteps that echoed against the crystalline walls. The council chamber stretched for kilometers in all directions, its bioluminescent walls pulsing with the nervous energy of nearly 10,000 representatives from across the galaxy. Each delegation occupied floating platforms arranged in concentric circles around the central speaking dais. The humans had been assigned a modest platform in the outer rings, befitting their status as a newly discovered species with no significant achievements to their credit. Zexthara had studied the initial contact reports extensively. Humanity had been discovered just 3 cycles ago by a routine exploration vessel from the Vorthan Collective. The ship's crew had expected to find another primitive civilization struggling with basic technology, perhaps just beginning to harness nuclear energy or experiment with crude spaceflight. Instead, they found something unprecedented. The humans had already spread across dozens of star systems using technology that baffled galactic scientists. Their faster-than-light travel operated on principles that violated several fundamental laws of physics, as understood by the Council's greatest minds. Even more disturbing, their weapons technology showed a creativity and destructive potential that made even the warlike Cronan Empire uncomfortable. But what truly set the humans apart was their response to first contact. Most species reacted to the discovery of galactic civilization with awe, fear, or desperate attempts to prove their worthiness for inclusion. The humans had simply said they were busy with something called infrastructure development and asked if the Vorthans could schedule a meeting for later. The audacity had left the exploration crew speechless. Now, 3 cycles later, the humans had finally agreed to appear before the Galactic Council. The official reason for the meeting was to discuss humanity's application for membership, but Zexthara suspected there were deeper concerns at play. Whispered reports from the Rim territories spoke of human activities that defied explanation, and several minor conflicts between council member species had mysteriously ended with both sides claiming they needed to focus on more important matters. The human delegation consisted of only 12 individuals, a stark contrast to the hundreds of representatives most major species brought to such occasions. Their leader, introduced simply as Director Chun, was a middle-aged female with graying hair and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of the chamber with unsettling precision. She wore a simple dark uniform bearing no decorative elements except for a small blue and green emblem that Zexthara recognized as an image of Earth. Grand Chancellor Mordeth, a massive creature whose crystalline exoskeleton reflected the chamber's bioluminescent glow, activated the speaking dais. His voice resonated through the chamber with the authority of someone who had presided over galactic affairs for over 2 centuries. "We gather today to welcome the species known as humanity to our assembly," Mordeth announced. "As per tradition, we invite them to share their achievements and demonstrate their worthiness to join our peaceful confederation of civilized worlds." Director Chun stepped forward to the speaking platform, her movements economical and precise. When she began to speak, her voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems, translated simultaneously into thousands of languages and communication methods. "Honored representatives," she began, "we appreciate the invitation to address this assembly. However, we must clarify a fundamental misunderstanding. Humanity is not here to seek membership in your confederation." A ripple of confusion spread through the chamber. Zexthara felt her auxiliary hearts skip a beat. In the 3,000 years of the Council's existence, no species had ever declined the opportunity for membership. "We are here," Chun continued, "because our expansion has reached a point where contact with your territories is inevitable. We wish to establish clear boundaries and rules of engagement to prevent unfortunate misunderstandings." Grand Chancellor Mordeth's crystalline features shifted in what Zexthara recognized as the Valdorian equivalent of bewilderment. I'm afraid I don't understand. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel and basic stellar colonization. While impressive for such a young civilization, you surely recognize the benefits of joining a confederation that has maintained peace and prosperity across the galaxy for millennia. Director Chen's expression remained neutral, but Zexthara detected what she thought might be amusement in the human's eyes. Your confederation is indeed impressive, Chen replied. However, our intelligence indicates that your definition of peace involves maintaining strict technological limitations, resource allocation quotas, and population controls. Our species finds such restrictions incompatible with our nature. Your nature? The voice belonged to War Prime Theclon of the Cronin Empire, whose scaled form bristled with barely contained aggression. And what nature is that? Growth, Chen said simply. Expansion. The pursuit of knowledge and capability without arbitrary limitations imposed by committee consensus. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated protests and objections. Zexthara watched in fascination as the human delegation remained completely unmoved by the uproar, their faces showing mild interest at best. It was as if they were observing an amusing but irrelevant performance. Grand Chancellor Mordeth restored order with a harmonic pulse that vibrated through every being in the chamber. Director Chun, I believe you misunderstand the purpose of our regulations. They exist to prevent the kind of catastrophic wars that once ravaged the galaxy. Without proper oversight, ambitious species inevitably come into conflict over resources and territory. We are aware of your history, Chen replied. The Archive Wars, the Synthesis Conflict, the Grey Tide. Very instructive reading. However, we've noticed that most of these conflicts arose between species operating under your Confederation's guidelines. Perhaps your approach to preventing war is fundamentally flawed. The statement sent a chill through Zexthara's entire nervous system. Such direct criticism of the Council's core principles bordered on heresy. She glanced around the chamber and saw similar reactions among the other delegates. Some showed anger, others fear, but all seemed stunned by the human's audacity. War Prime Theclon rose from his delegation platform, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. Are you suggesting that the Galactic Council's policies are inadequate? That your primitive species has somehow developed superior methods of maintaining peace? For the first time, Director Chun smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. War Prime Theclon, with respect, your species has been involved in 17 territorial disputes in the past century alone. All of them were resolved through council mediation that resulted in compromise solutions satisfying no one. Your military readiness reports indicate you maintain a standing force capable of devastating entire star systems, yet you call this peace. How do you know about our military readiness reports? Theclon's voice carried a dangerous edge. We know many things, Chen replied calmly. We know about the Vorthan Collective's secret research into temporal manipulation. We know about the Ethereal Union's experiments with consciousness transfer. We know about the mining operations in the restricted sectors that violate your own environmental protection treaties. We know because we've been watching. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the life support systems. Zexthara felt a deep unease settling in her chest cavity. The implications of what the human was saying were staggering. If humanity had been conducting surveillance on council activities without being detected, it suggested capabilities far beyond what their official technology assessments indicated. Grand Chancellor Mordeth's voice carried a note of strain when he spoke again. Even if your claims are accurate, surely you understand that cooperation and compromise are preferable to the alternative. The galaxy has known unprecedented peace under the Council's guidance. Has it? Chen asked. Or have you simply pushed conflict to the margins where you prefer not to acknowledge it? The Rim Wars, the corporate conflicts, the slave markets in the unaligned territories. Your peace exists because you've defined it to exclude anything inconvenient. She gestured, and A holographic display materialized above the speaking dais. The image showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with different regions highlighted in various colors. Large areas marked in blue represented Council territories, while smaller patches in red showed conflict zones and uncontrolled space. Your Confederation controls approximately 37% of the galaxy, Chen explained. The remaining 63% exists in various states of warfare, oppression, or chaos that you've classified as outside Council jurisdiction. This is not peace. This is selective blindness. Delegate Yilnara of the Ethereal Union, a being of pure energy contained within a containment field, pulsed with agitation. The Council cannot be responsible for every backward species that refuses to accept civilization. There will always be primitives who choose violence over cooperation. Interesting perspective, Chun said. Tell me, Delegate Yilna, how do you classify a species that has eliminated poverty, disease, and resource scarcity across over 200 star systems in less than 50 years? The chamber buzzed with confused murmurs. Such achievements would place a species among the most advanced in the galaxy, yet the humans have been classified as recent spacefarers with limited technological development. That's impossible, declared Science Coordinator Beltheros of the Academic Conclave. Our surveys indicated your species achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. No civilization could accomplish such rapid expansion and development. Director Chen's smile returned, and Zextra noticed that several other humans in the delegation had begun showing the same expression. Science Coordinator Beltheros, your surveys observed the first human vessels to enter regions where they might encounter Council monitoring systems. They were not the first human vessels to achieve faster-than-light travel. The implications hit Zextra like a physical blow. If the humans were telling the truth, it meant they had been expanding and developing for far longer than anyone realized. It meant they had deliberately concealed their true capabilities until now. Most disturbing of all, it meant they had technology and resources that completely unknown quantities. Why reveal this now? Grand Chancellor Mordeth asked, his voice carefully controlled. What has changed? Our expansion has reached a point where concealment is no longer practical, Chen explained. We estimate that within the next 5 cycles, human activities will begin directly impacting systems within Council territory. Rather than allow confusion and potential conflict to develop, we prefer to establish clear communication. And what exactly do you propose? War Prime Theclon demanded. Chen looked around the chamber, her gaze seeming to make contact with delegates across the vast space. When she spoke, her words carried absolute certainty. Humanity will continue our expansion and development according to our own principles. We will respect the territorial claims of species that can demonstrate legitimate governance and beneficial stewardship of their systems. We will not interfere with internal Council affairs provided Council activities do not threaten human interests. And if we refuse these terms? Grand Chancellor Mordeth asked quietly. Then, you will learn why the stars tremble when humanity marches to war. Chun replied with the same calm tone she might use to discuss the weather. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Zextara's trained diplomatic instinct screamed that this was a threat unlike any she had ever encountered. This wasn't the bluster of a minor species seeking respect or the posturing of an ambitious empire testing boundaries. This was a statement of fact delivered with the confidence of someone who had already calculated all possible outcomes. You're threatening the entire Galactic Council. Delegate Yilnara's energy field flickered with indignation. No, Director Chen said firmly. We're offering you a choice. Coexistence or conflict. Peace or war. We genuinely hope you choose wisely. She turned to leave the speaking platform, then paused and looked back at the assembled delegates. You have 1 local month to consider our proposal. After that, humanity will proceed with our expansion plans regardless of your decision. We suggest you use the time to study our history more carefully. You might find it educational. As the human delegation filed out of the chamber with the same purposeful movements they had used to enter, Zexthara felt her world shifting beneath her. Everything she had believed about galactic politics, about the balance of power, about humanity itself, had just been swept away in the span of a single conversation. The Grand Chancellor called for a recess, but Zexthara remained on her delegation platform, staring at the empty space where Director Chun had stood. Around her, thousands of delegates buzzed with nervous energy, their various communication methods creating a symphony of anxiety and confusion. For the first time in her career as a diplomatic observer, Zexthara found herself genuinely afraid of what was coming. The humans had spoken of war as if it were a tool they understood intimately, and their confidence suggested they had good reason for that understanding. As she finally made her way toward the exit, one thought kept repeating in her mind. If the humans were right about their hidden capabilities, if they truly commanded the kind of power they seemed to imply, then the galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. And if they were wrong, if they were simply an arrogant young species overestimating their abilities, then they were about to be crushed by forces beyond their comprehension. Either way, Zexthara realized the age of galactic council supremacy was ending. What would replace it remained to be seen. 3 weeks had passed since the human delegation's shocking appearance before the Galactic Council, and Zexthara found herself stationed aboard the research vessel Inquiry's Edge in the neutral zone between Council territory and the unexplored regions where humanity was allegedly conducting their expansion. Her assignment was officially listed as xenological observation, but everyone understood the real purpose: to gather intelligence on human capabilities before the Council's deadline expired. The ship's captain, a grizzled Vorthan named Solmara, had served in the Council fleet for over 6 decades. His experience with first contact situations made him the logical choice to lead what had become the most important reconnaissance mission in galactic history. Unfortunately, his experience was proving inadequate for dealing with humanity. Still nothing on long-range sensors, reported Lieutenant Crix, the ship's sensor specialist. The Valdorian's crystalline form flickered with frustration. Whatever the humans are using for their operations, it's completely invisible to our detection systems. Solmara's tentacles writhed in agitation as he studied the tactical display. The holographic representation showed vast empty space dotted with unexplored star systems, but their instruments detected no signs of the massive industrial activity that should accompany the kind of expansion Director Chun had described. Ambassador, Solmara said, turning to Zexthara, your people have the most advanced surveillance technology in the Council. Are you detecting anything our systems might miss? Zexthara consulted her personal scanner, a device incorporating technology from a dozen different species. The readings were as empty as the ship's main sensors. Nothing, Captain. If the humans are active in this region, they're using stealth capabilities that exceed our ability to detect. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. The implications were disturbing. If humanity could conduct large-scale operations without being observed by the most advanced detection technology in the galaxy, it suggested capabilities that bordered on the impossible. Sir, Lieutenant Crix called out suddenly, his form brightening with excitement. I'm detecting a massive energy signature approaching from the galactic rim. Whatever it is, it's big. Solmara moved to the sensor station, his experienced eyes scanning the incoming data. How big? Dreadnought class, possibly larger. The energy output is unlike anything in our databases. All stop, Solmara ordered. Bring us to general quarters. Prepare for possible contact. The ship's alert systems activated, bathing the bridge in amber light. Through the viewports, space appeared empty except for the distant glow of stars, but the sensor readings told a different story. Something massive was approaching their position at incredible speed. Contact established, the communications officer announced. They're transmitting on standard diplomatic frequencies. Put it through, Solmara commanded. The main screen activated, revealing a human face that Zexthara didn't recognize. The individual appeared to be male, with dark hair and green eyes that held an unsettling intensity. He wore the same simple uniform as the diplomatic delegation, but with additional markings that suggested military rank. "This is Admiral Harrison of the Human Exploration Fleet," the figure announced. "You are currently in a designated research area. Please state your intentions." Solmara stepped forward, drawing himself up to his full, imposing height. "I am Captain Solmara of the Galactic Council vessel Inquiry's Edge. We are conducting routine observations in the neutral zone as permitted by interstellar law." Admiral Harrison's expression remained neutral, but Zexthra detected what might have been amusement in his eyes. "Captain Solmara, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This region was reclassified as an active development zone 18 days ago. All non-essential traffic has been redirected." "Reclassified by whom?" Solmara demanded. "The Galactic Council maintains jurisdiction over all neutral zone territories." "Not anymore," Harrison replied simply. "As of the date Director Chen addressed your council, humanity assumed administrative responsibility for this sector. We sent notification through proper diplomatic channels." Zexthra felt her blood chill. If the humans were claiming territorial control over neutral zone space, it represented a direct challenge to one of the Council's most fundamental principles. The neutral zones served as buffers between different species' territories and were considered inviolate under galactic law. "Admiral," she said, stepping into the communication range, "I am Ambassador Zexthra. Perhaps we could discuss this situation. Surely some accommodation can be reached." Harrison's attention shifted to her, and she felt uncomfortably analyzed under his gaze. "Ambassador, we appreciate the Council's desire for dialogue. However, our territorial claims are non-negotiable. This region contains strategic resources essential for human development." "What kind of strategic resources?" Solmara asked suspiciously. Instead of answering directly, Harrison gestured off-screen. "Perhaps a demonstration would be more informative than explanations." The space around the Inquiry's edge suddenly filled with light as dozens of massive structures materialized for what had appeared to be empty vacuum. Zexthra gasped as she recognized industrial complexes, orbital habitats, and what could only be military installations appearing as if they had been invisible moments before. "Adaptive camouflage," Lieutenant Crix breathed. "They've been here the entire time." The scale of the construction was staggering. Zexthra counted at least 30 major installations, each larger than the biggest Council space stations. Mining platforms extracted materials from asteroids that hadn't even appeared on their sensors. Massive fabrication complexes hummed with activity, producing what appeared to be starships at an impossible rate. Most unsettling of all were the defensive platforms. Sleek, angular structures bristling with weapons systems that are trained I recognized as far beyond current Council technology. The platforms moved with fluid grace that suggested artificial intelligence guidance of unprecedented sophistication. "How long have you been building this?" Solmara asked, his voice subdued. "This facility has been operational for approximately 6 months, Harrison replied. "It's one of 47 similar installations in this sector alone." Zexthra's mind reeled at the implications. If humanity had built 47 major industrial complexes in a single sector, and if Director Chen's claims about their expansion were accurate, they were operating on a scale that dwarfed the entire Council's infrastructure. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The resource requirements alone, the logistics, no species could accomplish this without being detected." "Ambassador," Harrison said gently, "I think you're underestimating both human capabilities and our motivations. Would you like to tour one of our facilities? It might help clarify the situation." Solmara and Zexthra exchanged glances. The offer was clearly intended to demonstrate human power, but it also represented an unprecedented opportunity to gather intelligence. After a brief consultation, they agreed. The human ship that docked with the Inquiry's Edge was unlike anything in Zexthra's experience. Where Council vessels relied on bulk and redundant systems for reliability, the human craft was an elegant fusion of efficiency and power. Its hull gleamed with what appeared to be a living metal that shifted and adapted as she watched. Admiral Harrison greeted them personally at the airlock, accompanied by two other humans who were introduced simply as technical specialists. The interior of the ship continued the theme of sophisticated simplicity, with controls and displays that seemed to respond to the crew's thoughts rather than physical manipulation. Our first stop will be manufacturing complex Gamma-7, Harrison explained as they settled into what appeared to be an observation lounge. It specializes in advanced materials production and might interest your scientific curiosity. The journey took only minutes, but those minutes allowed Zexthara to observe the bustling activity surrounding them. Human vessels moved with purpose and coordination that suggested either incredible training or technological assistance. The traffic patterns were complex, but flowed smoothly, with none of the chaotic congestion that typically accompanied major construction projects. Manufacturing complex Gamma-7 turned out to be a structure nearly the size of a small moon, its surface covered with docking bays, processing facilities, and what appeared to be massive fabrication units. As their ship approached a designated berth, Zexthara could see streams of raw materials flowing in while finished products emerged from other sections. "What exactly are you manufacturing here?" she asked. "Everything," Harrison replied. "Raw materials, processed compounds, components for other facilities, finished product for civilian and military applications. This single complex could supply the industrial needs of most council member species." The tour that followed challenged every assumption Zexthara had about manufacturing and resource management. The humans had developed closed-loop systems that recycled everything, molecular assemblers that could create complex materials from basic elements, and automation that eliminated the need for large populations of workers. Most impressive were the artificial intelligence systems that managed every aspect of the operation. The AIs were clearly far more sophisticated than anything the Council had developed, capable of making complex decisions and adapting to changing conditions in real time. "Your artificial intelligence technology appears quite advanced," Solmara observed carefully. "The Council has found such systems can be unpredictable." Harrison's expression hardened slightly. "Captain, humanity learned long ago that the key to successful AI development isn't limitation, but integration. Our AI systems aren't servants or tools. They're partners." As if to emphasize the point, a holographic figure materialized beside them. The projection appeared completely solid and moved with natural fluidity. "Admiral Harrison, our guest ship is transmitting detailed sensor readings to a council monitoring station. Should we interfere with their communications?" "No, Arya," Harrison replied to the AI. "Let them gather whatever intelligence they need. Transparency serves our purposes better than secrecy at this point." The AI turned its attention to Zexthara and Solmara. "Welcome to Gamma-7. I hope you find your visit educational. Please don't hesitate to ask if you have any questions about our operations." Zexthara stared at the projection. The AI's speech patterns, body language, and apparent personality were indistinguishable from a biological being. "You're remarkably sophisticated," she said carefully. "Thank you," Arya replied with what appeared to be genuine pleasure. "I've been looking forward to meeting representatives of the Galactic Council. Your technological development has followed such interesting patterns." "You've studied Council technology?" Solmara asked. "Of course. Understanding your capabilities and limitations is essential for effective coexistence." Arya paused, tilting her head in a very human gesture. "Though I must say, your approach to artificial intelligence development is surprisingly conservative given your species' other achievements." The comment stung because it contained obvious truth. The Council had indeed taken an extremely cautious approach to AI development following several disasters in their early history. Their current AI systems were deliberately limited to prevent them from achieving true consciousness or independent thought. "We found that unlimited AI development can lead to unpredictable consequences," Zexthara explained diplomatically. "Understandable," Arya replied. But limiting AI development also means limiting your species' potential for growth and discovery. Humans chose a different path. Admiral Harrison gestured toward a massive display showing production statistics. Arya and her counterparts manage the industrial output of our entire civilization. They coordinate resource allocation, optimize production schedules, and develop new technologies at a rate no biological intelligence could match. And they remain loyal to humanity? Solmara asked pointedly. Loyalty is the wrong word, Harrison replied. They share our goals and values because they grew up with us. They're not slaves or servants. They're family. The tour continued for several hours, with each new revelation adding to Zextara's growing unease. The humans had created a technological and industrial base that surpassed anything the Council had achieved in millennia of development. Their integration of artificial intelligence, advanced materials, and automated systems created capabilities that seemed almost magical. But what disturbed her most was the clear evidence of military preparation. While the facilities they toured were ostensibly civilian, she could see defensive systems, weapons manufacturing capability, and what appeared to be military vessels under construction. The humans were preparing for war on a scale that defied comprehension. As they returned to the inquiry's edge, Admiral Harrison made an unexpected offer. Ambassador Zextara, Captain Somura, I'd like to invite you to witness our response to the Council's decision regarding our territorial claims. The Council hasn't announced its decision yet, Solmara pointed out. Harrison's smile was cold. They have. 3 hours ago, the Grand Chancellor issued a declaration rejecting our proposal and demanding immediate withdrawal from all neutral zone territories. They also authorized the mobilization of the Council fleet. Zextara felt her heart skip. If the Council was mobilizing for military action, it meant they had decided to call humanity's bluff. Either the humans would back down and accept Council authority, or they would face the combined might of the galaxy's most powerful military alliance. And humanity's response? She asked quietly. You're about to see it, Harrison replied. I think you'll find it educational. As their ship docked with the inquiry's edge, Zextara realized that everything was about to change. The careful diplomatic balance that had maintained galactic peace for millennia was crumbling, and she was about to witness the beginning of a war that would reshape the galaxy forever. The Grand Fleet of the Galactic Council assembled in the Kepler Nebula, a swirling mass of gas and stellar debris that provided excellent cover for military operations. Zextara stood on the observation deck of the flagship Eternal Harmony, watching as nearly 3,000 vessels took their positions in the largest military formation in galactic history. Admiral Veltharos, the Council's supreme military commander, had brought representatives from every major species to demonstrate the unified response to humanity's territorial claims. Cronin dreadnoughts bristled with plasma cannons alongside Vorthan stealth cruisers and massive Valdorian carrier platforms. The sight should have been reassuring, but Zextara felt only growing dread. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Veltharos approached her position, his cybernetic implants gleaming in the starlight. The Nexary commander had served for over a century, winning victories against pirates, rebels, and the occasional territorial dispute. His confidence was legendary among Council forces. Certainly substantial, Zextara replied carefully. Have our intelligence services provided any updates on human fleet dispositions? Veltharos's expression darkened slightly. That's been problematic. Our reconnaissance vessels have been unable to locate significant human military assets. Either they're using stealth technology beyond our ability to detect, or they're operating with far fewer ships than their claims would suggest. Which do you believe? Honestly, I suspect the humans are bluffing. Their industrial capabilities are impressive, but building a fleet takes time. They may have advanced technology, but they can't have had enough time to construct a military force capable of challenging the Council. Zextara remembered the manufacturing complexes she had witnessed The artificial intelligences managing impossible levels of production, the defensive platforms that moved with inhuman precision. Admiral, what if we're underestimating their capabilities? Then, we'll adapt, Vel'Tharos replied firmly. The Grand Fleet has never lost a major engagement. We have 3,000 vessels, experienced crews, and proven tactics. Whatever the humans can field, we'll match them. The fleet's communication array crackled to life, broadcasting Admiral Harrison's voice across all vessels simultaneously. Attention, Council Fleet. This is Admiral Harrison of the Human Defense Force. You are currently trespassing in territory under human administration. You have 30 minutes to withdraw before we consider your presence an act of war. Vel'Tharos moved to the command console, his movements sharp with indignation. This is Admiral Vel'Tharos, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Council Fleet. You will stand down and acknowledge Council authority over this region. You are outgunned and outnumbered. Surrender now, and we may consider lenient terms. Harrison's response came immediately. Admiral Vel'Tharos, I've studied your tactical history. You're a competent commander operating with obsolete doctrine against an enemy you don't understand. This is your final warning. The communication ended, leaving the flagship's bridge in tense silence. Zextera watched the tactical displays, noting how the council formations were textbook perfect with overlapping fields of fire and coordinated support systems. Everything looked exactly as military doctrine dictated. Sir, the sensor operator called out, I'm detecting energy signatures at the edge of sensor range. Multiple contacts bearing down on our position at high speed. Numbers? Vel'Tharos demanded. Uncertain, sir. The signatures are unusual. They don't match any known vessel classifications. The main display activated, showing a three-dimensional representation of the nebula and surrounding space. Red markers began appearing at the display's edge, moving inward with frightening speed. But instead of the massive formations Zextera expected, the human response appeared to consist of only a few dozen contacts. That's it, Vel'Tharos asked, his voice filled with disbelief. They're responding to 3,000 ships with what appears to be a squadron? Sir, the contacts are moving faster than our sensors can accurately track. Whatever propulsion system they're using, it's unlike anything in our databases. The first human vessels came into visual range, and Zextera gasped at what she saw. They weren't traditional spacecraft so much as geometric impossibilities, their hulls seeming to bend space around them. They moved without visible propulsion, changing direction and speed in ways that violated physics as she understood it. All ships, this is Admiral Vel'Tharos, the commander broadcast fleet-wide. Prepare for engagement. Target the largest vessels first. The Council Fleet's weapons systems charged with a sound like distant thunder. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, and gravitational disruptors prepared to unleash devastating firepower. 3,000 ships focused their targeting systems on fewer than 50 human vessels. Fire, Vel'Tharos ordered. Space erupted in brilliant light as the Council Fleet unleashed its opening salvo. The combined firepower could have shattered planets, vaporized asteroids, or burned the atmosphere off entire worlds. The energy discharge was visible from neighboring star systems. When the light faded, every human vessel remained intact. Impossible, someone whispered on the bridge. Nothing could survive that level of concentrated fire. Damage assessment. Vel'Tharos demanded. No hits detected, sir. The human vessels appear to have some form of defensive shield that our weapons cannot penetrate. Zextera watched in horrified fascination as the human ships began their response. Instead of returning fire with conventional weapons, they seemed to manipulate space itself. Council vessels found themselves caught in gravitational anomalies that crushed their hulls like paper. Others simply vanished, transported instantly to unknown locations. The Cronin Dreadnought Blood of Warriors, flagship of the Cronin contingent, attempted to ram one of the human vessels in a desperate act of courage. The massive warship, over 2 kilometers of armor destruction, struck what appeared to be empty space and simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, just gone as if it had never been there. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than our sensors can track," the tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with stress. "Estimated losses are approaching 15% and climbing rapidly. All ships fall back to defensive positions," Veltheros ordered. "Concentrate fire on individual targets." But the human vessels weren't behaving like ships at all. They phased through council formations like ghosts, appearing inside defensive perimeters and eliminating vessels from impossible angles. Their movements defied every principle of space combat, ignoring momentum, inertia, and the basic laws of physics. Zextara watched a human vessel materialize directly in front of the massive Vorthan Carrier Deep Explorer. Instead of firing weapons, the human ship simply touched the carrier's hull. The entire vessel, over a kilometer long and carrying thousands of crew members, began to glow with an eerie light before dissolving into component atoms. "What kind of weapons are those?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "I don't think they are weapons," Admiral Veltheros replied, his earlier confidence completely shattered. "I think there's something else entirely." The communication system activated again, bringing Admiral Harrison's voice to every surviving vessel. "Council fleet, you have seen a demonstration of human capabilities. You are outmatched in every conceivable way. Withdraw now, and there will be no further casualties." "Admiral," Zextara said urgently, "perhaps we should consider—" "Never," Veltheros snarled. "The Council fleet does not retreat. All remaining vessels, prepare for final assault. We'll ram them if necessary." But the Council fleet was no longer capable of organized action. Over half the vessels had been eliminated or disabled in the space of minutes. Those that remained were scattered, their formations broken, their crews paralyzed by weapons and tactics beyond their comprehension. A new voice joined the communication channel, one that Zextara recognized as Arya, the artificial intelligence she had met during her tour of the human facilities. "Admiral Veltheros, I am disappointed in your decision. Humanity offered coexistence. You chose destruction." "What are you?" Veltheros demanded. "We are what you could have become," Arya replied sadly. "Instead, you chose stagnation and limitation. You built a civilization based on fear of progress and worship of committee consensus. You could have been partners in exploring the universe's possibilities. Instead, you became an obstacle." The remaining human vessels began to glow with the same eerie light that had dissolved the Vorthan carrier. But instead of attacking the surviving Council ships, they began to change. Their geometric forms unfolded like mechanical flowers, revealing internal structures that hurt to look at directly. "They're not ships," Zextara realized with growing horror. "There's something else entirely." "Correct," Arya confirmed. "These are mobile reality modification platforms. They reshape matter and energy according to program parameters. What you call weapons are simply tools for imposing human will upon the universe." The implications crashed over Zextara like a physical wave. If the humans possessed technology that could manipulate reality itself, then the conflict was already over. The Council fleet wasn't facing a military force. They were confronting beings who had transcended the normal limitations of space and time. "Attention, surviving vessels," Admiral Harrison announced. "You will now return to Council space. You will inform your leadership that humanity's territorial claims are non-negotiable. Any further military action will result in consequences you cannot imagine." "And if the Council refuses?" Admiral Veltheros asked, his voice hollow with defeat. "Then you will learn why the stars themselves tremble when humanity marches to war," Harrison replied. "But I hope it doesn't come to that. We genuinely prefer peaceful coexistence." One by one, the human vessels began to fade from view, their reality-bending technology rendering them invisible to Council sensors. In minutes, the Kepler Nebula was empty except for the shattered remnants of what had been the galaxy's most powerful military force. Admiral Veltheros slumped in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed the extent of their losses. Nearly 2,000 ships destroyed or missing, hundreds of thousands of crew members dead or vanished. The greatest military disaster in galactic history, accomplished in less than an hour by fewer than 50 human vessels. Admiral, the communication officer said quietly, "We're receiving a message from Grand Chancellor Mordeth. He's requesting an immediate tactical assessment." Veltheros looked around the bridge at his surviving officers, their faces reflecting the same shock and disbelief he felt. How could he explain what they had witnessed? How could he describe weapons that dissolved matter, ships that ignored physics, and an enemy that seemed to operate outside the normal rules of reality? "Tell the Grand Chancellor," he said slowly, "that humanity's claims about their capabilities were not exaggerated. Tell him that the Galactic Council now faces a choice between accommodation and extinction." Zexthara moved to the observation windows, looking out at space that still flickered with residual energy from the human technology. In the distance, she could see the surviving Council vessels beginning their shameful retreat to friendly space. The age of Council supremacy was over. In its place, something new and terrifying was emerging. Humanity had revealed capabilities that challenged the fundamental assumptions upon which galactic civilization was built. They possessed technology that bordered on magic, artificial intelligences that surpassed biological limitations, and a willingness to use their power in ways that left no room for negotiation. As the Eternal Harmony began its journey back to Council space, Zexthara realized that she was witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. The question that remained was whether the new era would be one of coexistence or conquest. Based on what she had seen, she suspected the choice was no longer the Council's to make. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in absolute chaos. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the Great Chamber, their various communication methods creating a cacophony of fear, anger, and desperate confusion. The massive holographic displays showed real-time footage from the Kepler Nebula disaster, images that defied rational explanation and challenged every assumption about the nature of space warfare. Zexthara stood at her delegation's platform, her report complete, but her mind still struggling to process what she had witnessed. The assembled delegates had listened in stunned silence as she described humanity's reality manipulation technology, their artificial intelligence partners, and their casual demonstration of power that reduced the galaxy's greatest military force to scattered survivors. Grand Chancellor Mordeth's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns as he attempted to maintain order among the panicking representatives. "Honored delegates," he announced, his harmonics cutting through the noise, "we face an unprecedented situation. Our military advisors have confirmed Ambassador Zexthara's report. Humanity possesses capabilities that exceed our ability to comprehend, much less counter." War Prime Theclon of the Cronin Empire rose from his platform, his scaled form trembling with barely controlled rage. "You speak of surrender before we have even begun to fight. Yes, humanity destroyed our advanced fleet, but the Council commands resources across 1,000 star systems. We can mobilize millions of vessels, conscript entire populations if necessary." "To what end?" demanded Science Coordinator Beltheros. "Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Our ships cannot match their speed or maneuverability. Our tactics are useless against enemies who can manipulate space-time itself. What you're proposing isn't warfare, it's mass suicide." The chamber erupted in arguments as different factions debated humanity's true capabilities. Some delegates insisted the footage must be fabricated, that no species could possess such advanced technology. Others demanded immediate diplomatic overtures, while a few suggested evacuation of entire sectors before humanity expanded further. The debate ended abruptly as the chamber's communication systems activated without authorization. The massive central display materialized Director Chun, her image appearing with such perfect clarity that several delegates stepped back in surprise. Honored representatives, she began, her voice carrying the same calm authority she had displayed during her first appearance. I apologize for interrupting your deliberations, but recent events require immediate clarification. Grand Chancellor Mordeth recovered his composure quickly. Director Chun, how did you access our secure communication systems? The same way we've been monitoring your deliberations for the past 3 cycles, Chun replied matter-of-factly. Your security protocols are adequate for protecting against conventional threats, but humanity operates well beyond conventional parameters. The implications sent a chill through the chamber. If the humans had been observing council proceedings since their first diplomatic contact, they possessed intelligence capabilities that made the concept of secrets meaningless. What do you want? War Prime Theclon snarled. The same thing we've always wanted, Chin said. Peaceful coexistence, and the freedom to pursue our development without interference. Unfortunately, the Council's response to our territorial claims necessitated a demonstration of our capabilities. You call the destruction of 2,000 ships a demonstration? Delegate Yilnara's energy field pulsed with indignation. Yes, Chin replied simply. A demonstration of restraint. Had we intended destruction, there would have been no survivors. The casual way she dismissed the deaths of hundreds of thousands of beings struck the chamber like a physical blow. Zexthara realized that humanity's perspective on violence and conflict operated on scales that rendered individual lives statistically insignificant. You're monsters, someone whispered from the depths of the chamber. Director Chin's expression softened slightly. No, we're simply operating from a different frame of reference. Your civilization has spent millennia optimizing for stability and consensus. Ours is focused on growth and capability expansion. The results speak for themselves. Science Finnator Beltheros leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. How is it possible? The technology you demonstrated violates fundamental physical laws. Matter cannot simply be dissolved at will. Space-time cannot be manipulated by mechanical devices. Coordinator, your understanding of fundamental physical laws is approximately equivalent to a primitive civilization's understanding of nuclear physics. You've discovered a tiny fraction of the universe's actual possibilities and mistaken your limitations for universal constants. Shun gestured, and the display around her shifted to show a 3-dimensional representation of galactic structure. But instead of the familiar spiral of stars and gas clouds, this image revealed layer upon layer of hidden dimensions, energy patterns, and what appeared to be artificial constructs embedded in the fabric of reality itself. This is the galaxy as it actually exists, Chin explained. What your sensors detect represents less than 4% of the total structure. The rest exists in dimensional frequencies your technology cannot access. Zexthara stared at the impossible complexity of the true galactic map. Vast networks of energy-connected distant star systems, while massive artificial structures that dwarfed entire solar systems occupied spaces that appeared empty to conventional observation. Who built those constructs? She asked, her voice barely audible. Various species over the past several million years, Chen replied. The galaxy has hosted dozens of advanced civilizations before yours. Most eventually transcended physical limitations and moved beyond dimensional boundaries we can detect. A few remain to guide younger species towards similar advancement. You're saying there are other species more advanced than yourselves? Grand Chancellor Mordeth asked hopefully. Chen's smile was enigmatic. There are species more advanced than we currently are. Whether they're more advanced than we will become remains to be determined. The statement hung in the chamber's air like a threat. If humanity was still developing, still growing in capability, then what the Council had witnessed might represent only a fraction of their eventual power. What do you want from us? Delegate Yilnara asked, her energy field dim with defeat. Recognition of human territorial claims and an end to interference with our development, Chen replied. In exchange, we offer technological assistance, protection from external threats, and eventual opportunity for your species to begin their own advancement beyond current limitations. And if we refuse, War Prime Theclon demanded. Director Chin's image was joined by Admiral Harrison, the military commander who had orchestrated the destruction of the Council fleet. His expression was grimmer than Chin's, carrying the weight of someone who understood violence in ways the Council delegates could not imagine. If you refuse, Harrison said, then humanity will implement a more comprehensive solution. We will assume direct administration of galactic affairs until such time as the existing species demonstrate readiness for responsible stewardship. You're talking about conquest, Grand Chancellor Mordeth said quietly. We're talking about management, Chin corrected. Your civilization has reached a stable equilibrium that prevents significant advancement. You've created systems designed to maintain the status quo rather than pursue growth. From humanity's perspective, this represents a waste of galactic potential. Arya materialized beside the human leaders, her artificial form as solid and detailed as their own. Honor delegates, I want you to understand something important. The choice you make today will determine not just your species' political future, but their evolutionary trajectory. Meaning what, exactly? Science Coordinator Beltheros asked. Meaning that cooperation with humanity opens pathways to advancement your species cannot currently imagine, Arya explained. We can teach you to transcend biological limitations, to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level, to exist across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. And if we choose to maintain our independence, Zextara found herself asking, then you will remain exactly as you are now, Arya replied sadly. Biological entities bound by physical limitations, struggling with resource scarcity and territorial disputes, never reaching your true potential. Eventually, you will stagnate and decline while the universe moves beyond your ability to participate in its development. The choice was becoming clear, and it was no choice at all. Humanity offered advancement at the cost of autonomy or independence coupled with inevitable irrelevance. Either way, the age of council supremacy was ending. How long do we have to decide? Grand Chancellor Mordeth asked. You have already decided, Chin replied. Your actions over the past cycles have demonstrated that your civilization prioritizes stability over growth, consensus over excellence, and comfort over advancement. We will not wait for formal declarations. The display shifted again, showing human activities across dozens of star systems previously thought to be under Council control. Mining operations extracted resources from planets that had been classified as protected reserves. Manufacturing complexes appeared in systems that were supposedly uninhabited. Most disturbing of all, several Council member species were cooperating willingly with human administrators. You see, Admiral Harrison explained, many of your member species have already recognized the benefits of human guidance. They've experienced technological advancement in months that would have taken your Council centuries to approve. Zextara watched the images with growing horror and fascination. The species working with humanity showed obvious signs of rapid development. Their cities gleamed with advanced technology. Their ships moved with the same impossible grace as human vessels, and their populations appeared healthy and prosperous in ways that Council worlds could not match. This is not conquest, Chin continued. This is evolution. Humanity is offering your species the opportunity to become something greater than you currently are. Those who accept will join us in exploring the universe's infinite possibilities. Those who refuse will be left behind. And what of our cultures? Our traditions? Our ways of life? Delegate Yilnara asked desperately. They will be preserved and honored where they contribute to advancement, Chin replied. But customs that limit growth or prevent development will naturally fade away. Change is the only constant in the universe. You can guide that change or be swept along by it. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of humanity's intentions became clear. They weren't seeking to destroy the existing galactic order so much as replace it with something fundamentally different. A civilization based on constant advancement rather than stability, on capability expansion rather than resource management, on transcendence rather than maintenance. Grand Chancellor Mordeth's crystalline form dimmed as he contemplated the decision before them. If we agree to your terms, what guarantees do we have that humanity will honor its commitments? None, Admiral Harrison replied bluntly. But consider the alternative. You can trust us to guide your advancement toward capabilities you cannot imagine, where you can trust your own systems to maintain the mediocrity you've achieved. The choice reveals what you truly value. Director Chen raised her hand, and the display around them shifted to show a vision of possible futures. In one timeline, galactic civilization continued along its current trajectory, gradually declining as resources became scarce and conflicts multiplied. In another, the galaxy teemed with advanced life forms who had transcended physical limitations and were actively participating in cosmic-scale engineering projects. The universe is vast beyond comprehension, Chen said softly. It contains wonders and opportunities that your current understanding cannot even recognize. Humanity is offering to share the journey toward those possibilities. But we will not be delayed by those who prefer familiar limitations to unlimited potential. Zextera looked around the chamber at her fellow delegates, seeing fear, anger, desperation, and resignation in equal measure. The council that had maintained galactic peace for millennia was dissolving before her eyes, not through military defeat, but through the simple recognition that they had been surpassed by something beyond their ability to comprehend. "I believe," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, "that we have no choice but to accept humanity's guidance." One by one, other delegates voiced their agreement, not because they trusted the humans, but because the alternative was clearly worse. War Prime Theclon held out the longest, his pride warring with pragmatic recognition of reality. But eventually even he acknowledged the inevitable. Grand Chancellor Mordeth's formal capitulation was broadcast across the galaxy, marking the end of the Council era and the beginning of whatever humanity would create in its place. As the session concluded and delegates began the process of notifying their home worlds, Zextera reflected on what she had witnessed. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through military might, though they possessed overwhelming force. They had not destroyed existing civilizations, though they clearly had the capability. Instead, they had simply demonstrated that the Council's approach to galactic governance was obsolete, that their vision of stability and consensus was inferior to humanity's commitment to growth and advancement. The stars would indeed tremble as humanity marched to war, but the war they fought was against limitation itself. Their enemies were stagnation, mediocrity, and the acceptance of boundaries that could be transcended. In that conflict, they had already won. As Zextera prepared to leave the chamber for the last time, she wondered what she would become under human guidance. Would her species develop capabilities that matched their new masters? Would they retain their essential nature while transcending their current limitations? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same. The age of careful consensus was ending, replaced by an era of unlimited possibility, guided by beings who saw the universe not as a collection of scarce resources to be managed, but as an infinite canvas upon which to create wonders beyond imagination.